So in today's matchup, we have Godzilla 2019 versus the Kraken. This is the Kraken from the Clash of the Titans movie. And in this matchup, Godzilla comes in at 393 feet tall, while the Kraken comes in standing at somewhere over 400 feet tall. Probably a little bit over 400 feet tall, but there's no exact measurement. And so yeah, the Kraken does have the height advantage in this fight. But that is really about all that he has as an advantage in this fight. Because if you look at this, he does have the size just by a little bit, but Godzilla definitely has speed, agility on his side for sure. If you see the Godzilla King of the Monsters movie, there are multiple cases proving that he is just way faster. At the end of the movie, you can tell he is just insanely faster, but he was a little powered up in that moment after that nuke. But even look at the first example in the first fight against King Ghidorah in the ice. You can see how much faster and more agile Godzilla is even at that point. And then the weapons definitely goes to Godzilla because he has the atomic breath. And the Kraken at this point doesn't even have a weapon. We don't see it, at least in that movie. And then feats easily goes to Godzilla. That lack of screen time from the Kraken really does kill him in this fight. But Godzilla is able to take down multiple Mutos in the first Godzilla movie. And Godzilla is actually able to kill Muto Prime if we're including the comic, which I guess we won't really include that here. We really don't need to, but it's just another item in Godzilla's advantage. Godzilla is able to fight King Ghidorah multiple times, kind of tie with him in the first one, beat him in the water, even though it's interrupted, and then lose to him in the last fight. And that is very important to note that he does beat King Ghidorah in the water, because this could easily turn into a water battle since the Kraken comes from the sea. But then Godzilla also, in my opinion, has durability. From all we've seen, easily gets durability. All the different items we've seen, being able to be shot at by the gravity beams, getting bit by the Mutos, being dropped out of the sky, getting nuked multiple times and just surviving it and actually powering him up. Because the Kraken just kind of comes out at the end of the movie and gets killed by the Medusa's head, really just leaves durability going to Godzilla easily. But since there's such a lack of screen time, it's pretty easy to say Godzilla win this fight. So I decided to break down this fight exactly how I think it would go down. If these two were lined up, Godzilla and the Kraken are both lined up, I think the way this would go down, they would charge and they would collide very similarly to Godzilla and King Ghidorah. I think they would meet and there'd be a sonic wave, because I don't think either of these kaijus would push each other back, at least at the start. I think they would collide just like Godzilla and King Ghidorah. They would exchange bites, a very powerful bite from either of them. They would both exchange bites, and then I feel the Kraken would wrap his tentacles around Godzilla, and after that, Godzilla would bite off one of the tentacles. And at that point, I think that the Kraken would step off. I think they would both separate, give each other a little space, and then this is when Godzilla will light up his atomic breath. I think this is a very good time where he would do it, because in those other fights, you can kind of notice he kind of fights for a little bit, he charges, and then usually he uses his atomic breath towards the middle of the fight, and he usually doesn't start out with it. He usually starts out in close combat and then lights up the atomic breath. I don't think it would do any major damage to the Kraken, but it would definitely stun him temporarily. Then Godzilla would go back in, and this time, I think Godzilla would start to push him back a little bit. After that atomic breath and that tentacle being ripped off, I think the Kraken's definitely going to be feeling it in this moment. He's a little weak and a little stunned from that atomic breath. Godzilla goes in for another bite, and I think the Kraken tries to wrap his tentacles around him again, really try to get him in a vulnerable position, but this time Godzilla is able to bite him even worse, is really starting to rip him apart at this point, and then I feel that the Kraken would wrap him up with his tentacles, grab him with his arms. Since the Kraken's already stunned and weaker at this point, I think Godzilla would light up the atomic breath from very close range, and this would be very deadly. I think this would go from a little stun to actually really hurting him. This would really have the Kraken damaged, and at this point he's almost collapsing, and this is when Godzilla goes in for a bite and really starts to rip him apart, and then this is where I feel the fight is over. Godzilla goes in for the win and damages him enough and will get the win in this fight. And that was my scenario for how I think this fight would exactly go down. I listed the items from what Godzilla has been able to do and the advantages he has. With the lack of screen time from the Kraken, I knew this would be a very lackluster matchup just because we don't have very much from him. So I thought it'd be a little interesting to do a different take on it and show exactly how I think this matchup would go down. Make sure you let me know down below what you thought of it and if I should do this for other matchups. And make sure you let me know down below who you think will win in this matchup. Make sure you let me know, and thanks for watching.